right, so I'm trying to adjust my camera here so it looks so dark. Okay, so everybody can hear me, right? Oh, gotta stop the video for 1 second. Sorry, yes, everybody can understand what I'm saying, right? Am I talking with a mic or not? Oh, perfect, perfect. Okay. All right, so welcome, guys. This is obviously a panel put together by the Toronto Film School. To give you an insight about the program, the VFX program, right? My name is Jaime Torres. I'm an instructor at the school as well. I've been an instructor now for almost 4 years, I would say, at this college, right? All online, so I don't deal with the campus, but I do enjoy teaching online, especially because of the program itself. It's so well laid out. So in fact, we got kind of lucky because of the COVID thing. We're not sort of stuck to sort of re-educate ourselves to teach online. I was actually looking at it like this. The last maybe 2, 3 years, I've been sort of like a beta to get ready for this, right? So, but anyways, I'm going to introduce you to our panelists. Let me just bring my agenda here. Yeah, so I'm going to introduce you to our panelists, and I'm going to get everybody to sort of introduce themselves, right? So I guess I'm going to start with Rachael McMunn. So take it away, right?
Sure. Yeah, I'm Rachael. I am a current student in the VFX program. I started here just earlier this year in January, and I have a background in visual arts. So I actually started in fine art. I did an undergrad in studio arts and focused mostly on printmaking, painting, drawing. So sort of a technical background in arts, and then switched over to coming to VFX school sort of at the drop of a hat. I was looking around online about how to stay creative, and VFX is something that I kind of gravitated towards, which I would have never expected for myself from the beginning, but super happy to be here, really excited to participate. And I can pass it off to Natalie.
Hi, so I'm Natalie Brdar. I'm an acting graduate from Toronto Film School's Acting for Film, Television, and Theatre program. I graduated late September of last year, 2019. I've done acting before I came to Toronto Film School, but mostly in just like high school plays and stuff like that. But I also have a background in broadcasting and editing and all that fun stuff. So it was nice to kind of have that in my backpack to come to Toronto Film School and to kind of know both sides and to help me with my acting. So that was pretty cool.
Let's hear now from Mr. Del Rio, right? Yeah.
Hey, thanks. My name is Tony Del Rio. I teach film production in the acting department at the Toronto Film School, as well as the self-promotion and marketing classes at the film production school. And I'm here to kind of speak about the importance of VFX in the corporate and commercial world, where I run my own video production company. But yeah, that was a wicked demo. I've never seen it before. Nice.
Oh yeah. It was put together with student work for in the last only short 9 months, right? So
wow,
some of these guys that actually came into the program back in January, a lot of them didn't even know what 3D is all about, right? Or so the knowledge that they gain in the last 9 months has been a lot. It's been a lot, but I think, and I know Rachael can most likely agree with me, right? The thing is that we're trying to make it not only educational but also fun, because when you feel that you're not actually working but you're doing something that you like, and you know what, I know a lot of us in the industry have gone through this, where secretly we'll take a job for free without telling the client, right? But obviously we have to charge just for the sake of it, right? But anyways, yeah, so I guess now we can talk about the agenda, right? What's so the agenda today is basically going through a couple of tidbits that's going to give you some information about the program, right? The visual effects program. We around what time is it? 1:10. So we're I guess at 1:15 we're gonna be looking at more stuff, such as Rachel's gonna be talking about the program, right? And what's changed her expertise as to why she's taking this program. She's a student, right? So obviously, I can keep talking about the program and tell you how the best and whatever, but the reality is it's better to hear it from the student themselves, right? Because even though this is a very early program, it's already taking off and it's booming, right? So before that though, I'm just going to talk about the industry itself and how it's changing. Um, so I've had about maybe 25 years of experience now, right? I've been working in the industry, television, commercial production, film production. I've gone through from storyboard artist to directing to editing, also directing. So I've had my share of different areas, right? So I'm considered to be what's called a generalist, right? I have an experience about everything. And the reason why is that myself, personally, I got tired of just waiting for other people, especially at the young age, promising that we're going to work on a film, and then Friday night would come and it was only me showing up and that's it, right? So obviously that really put me in a different situation where how do I get around that, right? So I realized that if I become a 3D animator, I'm actually everything, right? I'm actually the modeler, I'm the set designer, the lighting expert, I'm the actor, right? Because my characters have to portray my knowledge through acting, right? So and it goes even further, right? It took me into realms that I wasn't even planning to visit. Like, for example, if I'm making something to fit us in a time period, like a 1920s clothing or style, right? I had to look up I had to talk to my fashion design friends and borrow books that show garments, clothing in that era and mimic that, right? Hairstyling is another thing that I had to also get into as well. Just again, there's things that you never plan for. Now, this obviously, I guess it hits a little bit about the question, right? How is this industry change and how is it impacting? And from the 90s and 80s, visual effects were sort of an afterthought. I mean, they would shoot a movie, they would put the money into the production, and then they would do post-production, which was only like, I don't know, like whatever money they had left, and they would have somebody wear like a rubber costume, just silly, right? But over the years, after Jurassic Park, I would say it changed everything, right? After Jurassic Park, what happened was that at that moment, actually, during the Jurassic Park, Steven Spielberg and the guys from ILM, like Stan Winston and Phil Tippmann, all of them sort of took the chance of using CGI, and they were pioneers, right? They were pioneers, and that I'm using a movie as a reference, by the way, because it's one of my favorites as well. But that movie just changed the whole opinion about CGI. And from that point on, it just grew, right? It grew vastly that nowadays, if you look at the industry and movies in general, right? You have about 80% green screen now, right? Like if you look at the Avengers or any of those movies, a lot of the times the actors only see themselves in a green screen environment, right? The rest is all CGI, right? So that means that now there's a lot of people out there more excited to play around with the technology to tell stories, right? Pretty much it's opened up a whole world of better tell a story, right? CGI doesn't only have to be with creatures and monsters, but it can also help with romanticizing a sky, right? With color correction and any of that nature, right? If a director comes to me and says, let's look at this shot that we took the other day, and can we do something about it to make it more, I don't know, like again, let's say golden hour where it's sunset. Can we enhance it so to help the story better, right? And that's usually considered also visual effects, right? A lot of times you see movies that have effects and you don't even know it, right? But that's the thing. It's changed a lot, and everyone nowadays talks about movies that has a lot of effects. If the effects were good or bad, regardless, there's an effect, right? So now, you know what? I'm gonna stop talking now, and I'm gonna take it to you, Rachel. The question for you would be is your question. Let me see. I have it written down here. So, okay. So, all right. So I see it now. So again, one of the reasons why you came here is because you change your field, right? So maybe you want to let us know a little bit about that more, right?
Yeah, so I kind of introduced a little bit when I introduced myself that I started out in a studio art field, so a fine art and a traditional arts field. And something that Jaime mentioned a little bit was that you develop really quickly. So the students that have been in the program for just 9 months, that demo reel that you saw at the beginning of the call is work from mostly students like them and like me who have really just begun with digital work. I was horrified of digital work for the I'd say the first 2 years of my undergrad. I actually took a course on digital printmaking, and I didn't have a choice. It was what fit in my schedule. I was kind of scared of doing it. And I took a digital media course as well, which was like basic Photoshop. So we did some entry-level compositing, and I actually really enjoyed the compositing. So I was coming closer to graduation, and I was looking at what I'm going to do with these skills I developed, because one thing I really noticed, especially when it comes to 3D modeling, is the visual skills matter a lot. There's certainly something you can train and develop, but having that background, it felt a little bit more like home for me. But at the same time, the field is intimidating. It's something you're like, well, how could you possibly make that look like that? You know, how can you start with a blank plate and end up with this scene that looks real, right? That isn't distracting when you look at a film and you watch a movie and you're trying to see the story, not see the visual effects, not see the work that people are putting in. That's the important part. You want to see what the actors are doing. You want to see what Natalie's doing and her role, not what I'm doing. My role shouldn't be there, but it's such a huge learning curve, and not a learning curve at all at the same time. It happens fast, but it's manageable for someone even like me, who comes from a background of like literally almost no digital technology at all. And that's exciting. There's a lot of things you can do with the technology, you know, even if it's little stuff in After Effects that isn't totally visual effects. For example, like I'm kind of in the middle ground of graphic design right now. That's where I work. That's what I do day to day. And there's a lot of little things that the visual effects category affects. And for me, I wouldn't even call it so much of a change. It's more of like a broadening of skills. There's like, I wouldn't say that what I did in my undergrad is entirely different from what I'm doing now. There's a lot of bits and pieces that you pull together and that come out, but it's a ton of fun. And Jaime's totally right. The programming is fun. I can sit in front of my computer for 8 hours a day tinkering with a model, and I'm good. I mean, I should get up and walk around a bit more for sure, you know, sitting working from home, but it is fun. A lot of the work is really fun, especially if you're a visual person who likes to see something come together. The final products are awesome. And I'm sure Natalie can probably speak about this a bit later, but as an actor, when you start out in a shot and you don't know what the final shot's going to look like, it must be really cool to see everything at the end when that production's done. I think they talk about the actors in Avengers and those big Marvel movies and productions where they shoot these movies and they don't see the movie until their first premiere too. So half the time they've been acting in a scene and they're like, oh my God, that looks so cool. So I think that answers the question a bit, but feel free. Also, I want to remind people the Q&A is open. If you have a question and it comes up as we're talking, pop it in there. We can definitely address it later. We'll have a Q&A at the end or as we're going if it's relevant to what we're talking about. So please feel free to use that feature.
Oh, yes, and I want to add to what you said. One of the things that I love about this visual effects industry is that, yes, uh, I've worked on a lot of productions in the past where I've seen footage coming from a DOP, coming things from different areas. And the beauty about our industry is that we're sort of like the first ones to see it coming together, right? We witness it, right? We see the magic starting to happen, right? And that's something that I always think about, right? Because if I'm working as a cinematographer, once I shoot the film, I'm out of there. I'm moving on to the next job and to the next job. And so um, I worked with so many different groups of people. I worked as also stop motion animator. And it's so nice to see everything coming together. It's hard to, I guess, explain if you never had that experience yet. But when you look at a monitor and you see all the effects uh, together, all the hard work from the production crew, everything just comes together. It's wonderful, right? So yeah, so that's one of the things that I do enjoy even now. Like it never gets tired, right? Um, so I know we got about another 3 minutes. Anybody want to add to this conversation, or you guys are okay? Everybody's okay. Okay.
We actually have some questions already in the Q&A.
Oh yes, we have two. That's right. So
We do, yeah.
let's
I
take a
can
look.
read those out for you if you'd like. The first
Yeah.
one here is, what do you think, how much time does it take to render a 2-hour movie? So this is probably a Jaime question.
It all depends, man. So what happened is a 2 hour movie, like you're talking about like a Pixar kind of movie. Um, that's funny. It would take months and months, maybe a couple of years to render. Obviously, these guys have render farms. So when I say like a movie to take about 2 years to render, they'll have like machines, like a whole building full of computers to process all this information. So they're able to render it really quick, right? But if you're using one computer, forget it, right? You're never gonna see your work till like maybe you're 25, right? Especially in the quality that these guys are rendered. You gotta remember that the computer has to calculate the bounce of light, and not just once, but bounce like a bunch of times, like real life, and calculates shadows, reflections. If you're talking about water, then you're looking at acoustics. There's so many variables to it, right? Okay, so one thing you got to think about is that if you pick a camera and you shoot something, let's say a rainy day, you're taking everything for granted that's happening in real life, right? The water just hits the floor and puddles and everything. It's all free, right? But if you have to create that synthetically, then that means that you have to understand all these principles on how the raindrop hits, and it causes a splash, and also it causes a puddle. On top of that, it has to reflect. It has to have some form of acoustics, and so all these things, as in a CG environment, you have to sort of understand them, right? Of course, if you come to school, you'll learn a lot about these principles, right? And the school's not supposed to teach you everything. What the school's going to do is going to prepare you to understand the principles better. And once you get out, you'll have a better point to find work at that point, right? So we have a lot of questions actually now.
Yeah,
Right.
I'm gonna do one that's on topic here with me and kind of what I was talking about. This one here is from Romaine. How does TFS make it possible for students with no background in the area of study to keep up with those who have knowledge in that area? I can answer that really easily because I have no background aside from a little bit of visual knowledge and visual understanding. But Technology wise, it can be a big learning curve, but your profs are really there for you. I think Jaime and I last week spent an hour on a Sunday afternoon on a call, going through my project and improving little bits and pieces. So, it depends on everybody's individual skills. I think that I'm a pretty adaptive learner, and I'm a good independent learner, and I know that about myself. Sometimes I don't reach out when I should to a prof when I really have a question, and I try and tough it out and figure it out myself. But really the big thing is we use Microsoft Teams. That's something that I didn't know coming into the program that might be helpful to know. And there's a chat feature there. You've got your classmates, bouncing stuff off your classmates is easy to do as well. So if you've got no background at all in, say, something like Adobe After Effects, it's not too hard to get going. And if you're struggling, there's definitely resources to help you get going. And I use also a lot of, like, when I have a specific question, because sometimes there's just one little feature you can't figure out, I go to YouTube and I watch a quick video. I collect a list of questions and I go to my prof. So it's definitely manageable if you're worried about background knowledge you have. It's paced really well. And for students who know a ton already, they just get to challenge themselves, and they get to put out a piece of work that has maybe a little bit more bits and pieces. But there's one thing I know, because Photoshop is my most strong program, and it's not, I know that's more entry level, but there's always more to learn. You're never done with features and programs like these. So that's a good thing to know. Is there, I'm just going to pass that back to Jaime with itinerary and make sure that if there's another question there that's relevant to a new topic.
Yeah, so I think I'm going to just answer one real quick, and then we'll move on to the next topic. So is there a specific software to make visual effects? You know what, like that's easy to answer. There's so many software. I mean, it's not one software that does it all. You have to sort of use specific software for whatever task you need to do at that moment, right? So in this school, we learn, I think like about 6 or 7 different software in general, like just for the whole school program, right? And every course you're going to be learning that software, right? So now the one thing I have to say though, for me, I try not to just teach software, but I also try to teach a little bit of logic. It's stuff that you would have to also analyze before you start using the software, right? Because that's important, because you can learn the software, but if you don't really understand some basic principles, then the work you're going to deliver will also suffer, right? So, yeah. So now I'm going to move on to the next question. This one is more for Tony, right? Tony Del Rio. The question for you is explain the different scales of production of how the effects department gets involved from pre-production and to post-production. How important is it for us, our students, to learn about green screen and for example, I guess it would be how to light them, right? So
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Okay, so
there was a long lead in there.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, how important is it the scale of production, and how the VFX department gets involved for pre-production to post-production, right?
Okay.
So yep.
So the first part would be speaking about the skills. I think as far as learning green screen skills specifically, every medium to large size company now has a built-in video team. And what I find that even if you kind of get into VFX to learn movies, that's what everyone wants to do as a producer, as an actor, as a director, we do have to somehow figure out other ways to work and other ways to keep moving. And learning just basic VFX, green screen skills in the corporate commercial world is a very sought after job. Like even at what is it? Amazon has like a 20-person video team. The way we learn these skills, like we get in creative purposes, but really video has become the way companies communicate with one another. So as far as like learning the value as far as like green screen skills and VFX skills, I think that's very adaptable. As we try to make our way to make movies, we do have to, buy our time by getting a job and working. So I think that provides a little bit of value of how important it is as far as learning those specific skills or production, because a lot of companies communicate themselves. They don't want to go to location. They're in a building, a boring office. So it's always generally green screen. I built 3 makeshift green screen studios, in companies in the downtown core over the past year and a half, just because people are like, we want the flexibility. We want to speak to our employees. We want to live stream. We want to do all these different things. And all it does is create employment opportunities for people who have these skills. That was the first part. The second one was about the pre. How important was it to get involved from pre-production all the way to the end? Well, from my perspective, there's nothing. I mean, I'm a business owner generally. I'm a director and a business owner, and I know that when you're talking about just like managing your budgets, the VFX team will punch you in the face if like you go through all the way at the end, and I go, please, Jaime, save me. We've done everything wrong. Fix this. Why does this guy look green? Why is the sun overexposed? It's like you do have to bridge everyone together at the beginning. It increases your prep time, but it saves you money towards the end, and it also always leads to a better product. So it's one of those things where whenever I take on a VFX shot as a director, I always do a pre-visualization. Okay, so what we do, it's like, if I know there's going to be a guy driving in a car, and then when I cut to the guy who's actually in the driver's seat, if I know it's going to be a fake background, I'll get, my handy cam, my phone, and I'll just like film someone sitting in a car. And then I'll use the wide shot when I go in, and I'll indicate, VFX 1. So what I do is I would go to the team like, listen, I need a VFX shot to replace when he's sitting. And then I'll do a quick, you're buying stock footage or whatever, just using my quick handy cam, boom, boom, boom. I'll be able to say, listen, VFX house or sweet Jaime, I need 4 shots done. I need it to be in here, 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 and here. And I know that every post person I've ever worked with is like, okay, great. Then you can start being creative. Then it's like, oh, okay, well, that's a great idea. What if we do this? Oh, we could do it very inexpensively if we do this. So it starts the ball rolling creatively. And if you want to get the best outcome, like any other, project, you have to get all the keys together in the beginning if you want a bright outcome. So that would be my long-winded answer.
Perfect. I'm going to answer one question here. I'm getting another question. Is there any best green screen recommendation? Meaning that if is there like a green screen that you can buy, or I guess that works. For us, I mean, I've worked with green screen so many years. The reality is, I've seen productions where they even use construction paper, right? Obviously, there's some rules to this, especially with how it's going to capture shadows and all that stuff. But if you're on a budget, you can actually make your own green screen, as long as you're not like close to the green screen and you have like a lot of space between you and the green screen, like let's say like 6 feet apart. Also light the green screen separately from you. That will sort of create different lighting conditions. So the green screen is supposed to be lit evenly, right? So that when you key it out, it gets rid of all the green, right? Also, don't wear anything green, right? Or else that part's going to be disappearing, right? So unless that's the effect, let's say you wear a ski mask that's all green, then all of a sudden it's just going to be pretty much a body without a head, right? So yeah, so that's just to answer that quick question.
Can I jump in a little bit on that?
Yep.
On that question.
Yep.
So this is a question that I get all the time from companies. It's like, do I need to rent, the green screen studio, the big high ceilings, the big 20-foot cyc wall or whatever? I know a guy who has a small little green screen that they have, they paint a wall, the key gen color, or they, whatever it's called.
Yeah.
Optically speaking, depending on your VFX skills, I think what Jaime's saying is whatever works can work. It really does is dependent on your own threshold of skills and how much you want to put in post to fix it. But it's like, I always tell clients, I was like, listen, if you want me to put in a paper $80 backdrop, on a Manfrotto thing, I can do that. But it's going to cost you more in post because you're not going to get the space. You might get a little bit of shine. I need the lights to light you separately. If I don't have the space, I don't want any spill from the green screen hitting your subject. Right. So it's kind of like, is that what you want? Okay. But it's going to cost you later. Whereas if you get into the big studio with the big lights and with the actual greens, I've seen people pull keys literally with 2 clicks. Right. Now, you don't tell the clients that. But like generally speaking, that's kind of how that kind of answers the question is, yes, there is many different ways. Optically in business, you want to get the most official looking stuff so you can charge them accordingly. But when it comes down to, is there a better or best solution, it always comes down on you and your own skill set.
Perfect. Okay, so there's a lot more questions here, but we're gonna have to leave some for the Q&A session. So right now, what we're gonna do is I got a question for Natalie, right? So let me look it up. Okay, so Natalie, I have a question here for you, and basically explain the actor's work and how they adapt to the green screen environment.
Well, as an actor, a lot of the time, especially more and more now that we have a lot of tech advancements in the film industry, you might be working with green screens a lot. And so as an actor, that generally means that you don't have some kind of environment to pull off of, or even you don't even have an actor to bounce off of and to pull emotion from. You're, I don't know, maybe looking at a pole with some kind of tennis ball as your marker, or a piece of tape, and you need to rely on yourself much more than you would if you were working with someone to be able to act. I mean, that's pretty much that. But then green screen, well, I guess no, this is more for special effects. Do you want me to go into that too?
Sure, if you don't mind. Yeah.
Well, special effects, a little different, not so much, but definitely still using your imagination. I mean, that's definitely what acting is all about. But with special effects, I mean, that can range anywhere from having a physical prop, such as a gun, and having muzzle flashes, so you have that to kind of work with, or something much bigger like explosions. I mean, the film series Transformers, I mean, they have all of that and much more. And half the time, you're not even working with someone face to face, such as the alien robots. But then there's explosions in almost every scene. And so you need to internalize all of that in your acting to be able to make your performance that much better, especially when there's, of course, no explosions going on. So that's a lot of fun, I guess.
Yeah. So basically just describe all of Michael Bay's techniques, explosions. That's a guy, that's what he does in all his movies, right? Slow motion, walking away from an explosion, right? So yeah, no, I agree. I worked with a lot of actors in the past as well. One of the things that we haven't really talked about also is motion capture, right? We've done a lot of motion capture at our studio, because I have my own studio as well. And the hardest part for the actors is sort of putting themselves in the environment, right? So what we've done is we've actually used Unreal Engine, where we create the actual CG environment, and we'll play it on the big monitor. And at the same time, they'll see themselves as whatever CG character they're trying to mimic, acting in that environment, right? So it's the advancements have gone so high now that and it's and a lot easy. It's easy to actually set up as well, right? Obviously, I have 25 years of experience of like so much technology, but the reality is that I've been teaching this to students as well for 22 years, right? 22 years of teaching from various different schools, colleges, right? So I kind of seen the evolution of VFX from the infancy, like the stages of in the 90s, the mid 90s, early 90s, right? Till now is just crazy, right? If you think about what's happened in the last 25 years, it's just been mind blowing, right? I don't know. I'm probably like saying I'm talking like 25 years, but I know with Rachel that you're probably that old, right? So we're close. Right?
Yep.
So I feel old now. Thank you. But anyways, yeah. And okay. So my defense, I started when I was 19, right? So you do the math, I guess, right? So anyways, I guess we're kind of 5 minutes. So we can actually start answering some questions if anybody,
Yeah.
right? So let's
actually have two for Natalie here as well that I want to do because they're on topic, if that's all right, Jaime.
perfect.
So first one is for Natalie. Will you approach a character or a scene differently if it involves VFX? If so, what's your process?
Interesting. Well, definitely, because that's very different from, I guess, some kind of well-rounded regular character. I mean, if it's including visual effects and special effects, you're definitely going to want to approach that different. You want to be as familiar with the script as possible, but not only your own stuff like dialogue, but all the actions and descriptions and stuff, because that'll kind of help you give more of a hand to what you're doing.
And actually, you know what? And as a follow-up, this might help you here too, is how important is it for as a student to know some of the visual effects? This was another question we had. How important is it to you to have an idea what's going on in the back end?
Mm-hmm. Well, myself having a background, I can say from my experience that it is very helpful, especially, being an actor, if you wanted to. I mean, I guess our goal is to help self-promote ourselves, whether it's through social media or making your own films with your friends. And so knowing as much as you can with every little aspect of filming can definitely help you. Whether, I mean, I don't know, whether it depends on what you want to do, but I would say, yeah, especially. Mm-hmm.
Cool. And it's still along the same line, so I'm going to throw this one out here. This was a question for Tony. How much is the collaboration between the film production students and the VFX students on any TSF projects? How much do VFX students, how much VFX do students of production learn? And Jaime, if you'll jump in on this one too, as well.
Yep.
As far as collaboration goes, we're always encouraged, very much encouraged, particularly on their final films, film productions, sixth term film. Everyone is always encouraged to work with each other. So that is something that actively happens every 3 months. At the end of every term, there's always graduating class working on films. And with a VFX class, obviously it's networking. I don't believe, and again, don't quote me, but I don't believe at this point TFS does any official events as far as networking. But I know I've seen numerous like student-led events, mixers and meeting people. But there's never a shortage of students taking on projects or filming, and will absolutely be in need of your skill set.
Yeah, that's right. For us, I know it's early to say because it's only in the 9th month. But the reality is that our instructors, I made sure with Roxanne that that the people that are working with us are also people that are working in the industry, right? Now, the one thing that I have to mention though is that because there's a lot of people in the industry that can teach, but they don't have the patience to teach, right? So because I've taught for so many years and I work at so many studios, and so I had to go into my Rolodex and figure out who can we sort of interview and see if they're interested. And so we got real good people to work with us. And so these guys also have a full-time job at studios, right? What I'm getting at is that they're able to also recommend you if you're that good, right? To help you find work also, right? So the reality is that there's I think there's two variables to this. First, you have to showcase your work and you have to work hard. again, you have to stand out to the point where a teacher would say, yeah, I mean, maybe there's a opportunity at this studio and perhaps I can recommend you, right? I know this is all online and it could, you might be on a different province, but again, it's open to interpretation. Whatever you find, right? The school will help you as well, from what I understand, right? So, but anyways, any other questions?
Yeah, I can field another one here. I'm going to try and stay on a general topic. So, and by the way, everyone, if you sent in a question earlier, I see it. We're going to get to it. I'm just trying to organize them in a way that they're logical.
Yeah.
So if I'm hopping around, don't worry, I see you. This one here is from Maria. I think it's a great question. Her son is 12 years old and she says he's already serious about this calling for VFX. He wants to become a film creator. His utmost passion is right now for visual effects, and he's working in a homemade take on aliens. Any ideas on how she can find some training and mentoring to guide him along his path, being that he's also younger?
Okay, so I can somewhat answer this. If he's 12 years old, I would nurture him as much as I can, in the sense of, like, if he needs like a camera, that's the first thing I would get my kid, a camera, right? Kids are the best storytellers, right? That's the thing. As adults, we lose that touch. And so getting him my camera so he or she can captivate their world, like I want to see it, right? So that's the first thing. Number two, the technology part of it. If he gets a software to edit his film, like Premiere or Final Cut Pro, on the Mac, if you're on the Mac side of things, yeah, it would be Final Cut. That would be helpful as well, right? And the third thing, if he wants to do effects, you start simple, right? You don't have to go too crazy. When I was young, I would look at other people using expensive cameras to do stop motion animation, but then for some reason I figured, I don't really need to do all that. And I can just draw the pictures on a piece of paper, scan them, and then bring all the frames one by one, even though it's a little bit longer to pull it up, but I did it. And at the end, I ended up with something that looked like hand animation, stop motion, right? And I realized there and then that you don't need to have that excuse that you need to have a camera or you need to have this. In fact, you can, if you have a cell phone, or if he has a cell phone, he can then take footage off the cell phone and start that way, right? So if he wants to learn VFX, then maybe if he's interested in perhaps introducing him to Blender, right? Because it's free. Obviously he's, what do you say, 11 years old, right? So yeah, so Blender, and then he can evolve to like using Maya after, right? We teach it at the school as well. So yeah, so that's pretty much the answer to that question, right?
Awesome.
Yep.
And I know we're into our Q&A period, so if anyone has comments, jump in, but I'll keep kind of prompting questions as we go if not. So this one here is something about, we've got a good one for production as well, and the VFX side. How do you measure what is too ambitious for a VFX project and what's achievable? So talking about timelines and project management when looking at VFX.
Money. It's all about money, because if somebody comes up to us and says we want, like, I don't know, like Avatar for $1,000, right? Obviously it's a little bit out of their league, right? So what we can tell them though is we can take that $1,000 and we can then offer them a counter offer. We'll say what we can do for that $1,000, right? So a lot of times students will come up with ideas that it's also ambitious. So as instructors, we are trained to knock that down a little bit, right? So, or bring it up if it's too weak, right? So because you have to remember that when you come to school, you really don't have a sense to gauge, right? To figure that out. So as instructors, we have to sort of tell you if it's too much or if it's too little, right? So, yep.
If I could just add on to that, if just could be a little bit more micro, I think you judge on how many VFX shots are needed for your project. So if you're like, is this too much? Is this too little? How do you know? Well, how many shots are you composing? You know, that's kind of a nice little start. If I need, 15 to 20 shots to finish it, well, break it down that way. Can you get maybe, can someone else that take on half of the work? Can you do some of this? And you can scale it that way. Whenever I'm pricing out jobs, I always get from VFX houses, it's always, well, for, $1,000, we'll give you 8 shots that, provided there's no crazy 3D scanning or no, but we'll do all of your rotoscoping. We'll add this, your mod, like whatever. This is what we'll do for your, your 6 or 7 shots. So that's always how I manage my own scale.
That's really helpful. That's great.
Yeah.
And just on that line as well, actually, we have another question that asks, what's the most helpful thing you can provide to your VFX team when you're shooting a project? So maybe Tony, that's a question for you. When you're working with a VFX production team, what's the most helpful thing in information that you can give them?
Script and storyboard, script and storyboard saying, hey, the storyboard is up to your interpretation to make it look better, kind of work creatively that way, but it's always a script. I know, always, like I mentioned before, pre-visualization of how many shots, but it's also, this is what I'm thinking, with the attitude of, I don't just need, this, I need you to tell me what you think this and how it can look better, but it's always a script.
I'm working with other directors as well. They provide us not only a storyboard and a script, but also a mood board, right? Which will captivate the style and look, the feel of the what they have in mind. A lot of times what they do is they don't design themselves. They'll look through images in the internet and find images that will sort of reflect on how they want that shot to feel, right? So they'll build the board and stick all these pictures. And that way, when we're looking at the storyboard, we can imagine now the look and style that he's after or she's after. So that's another thing also as well, right? Yep.
Awesome. So 2 similar questions here from Jordan. It sounds like he's been studying CGI and self-studying for about 5 years, and he's got a pretty good portfolio together. I'm paraphrasing 2 questions here into one. He's looking for a little bit of advice on the best way to reach out and find work if he doesn't have a college background, and if there's any tools you recommend to sort of filling in gaps in VFX education if you're someone who's come from a self-study background like you, Jaime.
Yes. Yep. So I am self-taught as well. My background was actually in college graphic design, right? So the reason why is because, make a long story short, I ended up doing the whole CG side of things because I have more of an attraction to it, right? And so I realized that college is going to cost at least $32,000 to learn it. And at that time, remember though, that at that time it was in its infancy, right? So nobody really knew where it was going or what it was. So I made the decision to learn it on my own. It's been 25 years later, right? And here I am. But for you now, my advice would be, if you already know a bit about CG, you have about 5 years, but there's sort of holes that have to be filled, then perhaps maybe consider taking this program, right? Because again, the instructors that we have in our program are very well trained, and they have also their many years of experience working in the industry, right? So, and the thing is, some of the instructors are award-winning too. So it's not people that are just anybody, right? So I would really consider taking a program, right, to fill those gaps. And also the other thing is too, you can learn it online, but the difference is that you can talk to your instructors live, right? And they will tell you if it's good or if it's not good, or what can be added or be taken away, right? So, yep.
Yeah, awesome. Always good to invest in skills for sure. So next question here, what kind of camera is best for filming visual effects? This is maybe Jaime or Tony. Have at it.
Okay, I guess I'll go first then. So
I feel like we're gonna fight about this one, Jaime, but go ahead. You go.
Well, for me, I always been like love the red camera, but there's Sony's as well. As a VFX artist, I prefer a camera that can log a lot of metadata, right, to adjust exposures and all that stuff without having to shoot it again. But I don't really have like a preference. Really, what it is about the budget, right? So whatever happens within the budget, that's what we're stuck with. And so it delivers another challenge, but at the same time, I mean, we can pull it off, right? So yeah, because it goes back to what I was saying before. You don't really need an expensive camera to pull off an effect. You can just use whatever is around you, right? I have a book by what's his name, Robert Rodriguez, who shot
Rebel
his
Without
first,
a Crew.
that's it, man.
Yeah,
yeah,
It's
yeah.
my
So
hero.
I watched that. I read it like at least 3 times, but he shot his first film for like $7,000, right? So, and the things that he did to get those shots were so incredible and inspiring, right? So yeah, so
Yeah, Rodriguez is also a huge influence for me. As a
Yeah.
filmmaker, like it's he was a next level guy back in late '90s.
yeah, late 90s.
So a true pioneer, and now my kids love the Spy Kids movies. Like just seeing the arc of his career is really something that isn't discussed enough.
Yeah.
From a guy grinding it out in Mexico for $7,000 in a movie, and now doing these incredible. Like it really is something special.
Well, he would get grabbed like sort of like a wheelchair, and he get like it was in the hospital, right?
That's right. Yeah.
They were shooting. Yeah,
That's
so
your
it's-
dolly. Right?
Yeah, the dolly.
Sit in a
yeah.
wheelchair and push up. Yeah.
It's
I would agree as far as what camera to use, because again, it goes back to the same question of what's the best green screen to use. You either you work with what you have. If you want to be like next level, you want to show up. Yeah, red camera is awesome if you can afford it, but those things get pricey, right? They get pricey real quick. But when it comes to from a ground level, it's whatever tool you need to do the job. As long as my hope is that they're 4K. I think nowadays iPhones are 4K. A nice 4K camera that's lit properly, on a decent sensor, they'll all do the job. It's never the guitar, Jaime. It's the musician playing it. Am I right?
Exactly.
Am I right?
Exactly.
Nailed it.
man.
Nailed it.
There you go.
Can we take another question or?
Yeah, so just as a time check here, I know we're coming up to the end of our official block. We've got 4 questions left here, so maybe a bit of a speed round. Mayali here asks for Natalie, would you prefer acting in a big budget movie with heavy VFX sequences, or a subtle drama, or even a comedy with actual locations and fellow actors? Maybe a bit of both. How do you feel about different sets?
I would definitely say both, because having jobs is nice, but I think it's cool when you're doing a lot of green screen work and special effects, because in the end, like you mentioned earlier on, it's so cool to see the end, especially if you don't quite know exactly what you're working with to begin with. But as for more films or TV shows or what have you with less of those things, I mean, it's definitely a huge difference, but I think it's great to do both. I mean, it's super fun. Yeah, I mean, that's what I have to say.
That's awesome. Okay, so the one more here we've got, how do you feel about projection mapping? So this is a how do you feel question. So kind of, yeah, how do you? I like working in Maya and doing texture mapping, but projection mapping, maybe Jamie, you could give us, or Jaime, you could give us on that one.
Projection mapping is actually one of the biggest things that we use when it comes to using still photography and projecting it onto a bunch of shapes like boxes and whatnot, to sort of like, let's say if you want to take a picture, put it in through a projector, and you want to project it into like a corner of a wall, but then you sort of put boxes around to mimic those buildings. And so when you have a second camera, now you can look around, and the projection sort of causes the parallax, right? Like it's real life. Now in 3D, that's what we do, right? So if we create land, like let's say a bunch of mountains and hills, what happens is that we take photographs, doctored in Photoshop, and we sort of skew out like geometry to captivate exactly how the photograph was shot. So you turn that camera into a projector and you leave it alone because it's projecting the image. Then you take a second camera and you can now move around that world, right? It's phenomenal. Like the stuff that you can see and do with that, it's incredible. And a lot of the big Hollywood films are full of that, right? So you see that with Martin Scorsese films. You see it also in James Cameron, right? They all use those techniques, right? I use it a lot as well in my work. When I use Nuke, I create a lot of projection mapping to create a map painting, right? So a map painting will then move. You can move the camera through water, and it looks so photorealistic, but again, it's just a picture, right? So yeah, so that's projection mapping. So I guess we're ran out of time. So I'm just gonna cap this off and say thank you guys. Thanks for your contribution to this. And that's pretty much it. I guess any questions or anything like that, we will answer them as well after this is over, right? So yeah, so that's it, you guys, and take care, and I will see you guys later, right?